On Raylan Prime, the sun never really set. It just grew tired of shining and decided to glare moodily from behind volcanic haze. Rivers of molten rock flowed like lazy serpents between ridges of black glass, and in the heart of that fiery wilderness stood a woman whose very existence made the planet tremble. Her name was Elira. The Reloni whispered it like a prayer and a warning, often in the same breath. She was enormous by human standards, easily 8 feet tall, her silhouette outlined by a halo of simmering light. Her skin shimmered with a faint golden hue, like sunlight refracted through smoke. And then there were her ears, long, graceful, and edged with silver ridges that quivered faintly when she concentrated. The elders said they were conduits, antennae for the planet's bioenergy. She said they were just very high-maintenance cartilage. When she walked, the ground beneath her softened. When she sighed, the air crackled. And when she sneezed once, just once, an entire greenhouse district had to be rebuilt. Since that day, she lived mostly alone. Even the most daring males of her species kept their distance, offering greetings from safe, scorch-resistant shelters. One brave admirer once approached her with flowers. The flowers caught fire. He ran. She hasn't seen him since, though she sometimes thought she heard faint screaming carried by the hot winds at night. Her solitude had become routine. Sunrise meditation to stabilize her energy, long hours studying the planet's thermal currents, and the occasional hobby of melting rocks into artistic blobs she pretended were sculptures. She liked the quiet. Well, mostly. Sometimes the silence pressed in on her, like the whole world was holding its breath, afraid she might exhale too hard and start a geological incident. One evening, as crimson light bled across the molten plains, Elira stood atop a cliff, watching geysers of flame pulse to the rhythm of the planet's core. She felt it, Raylan breathing beneath her, as if the world itself was alive and listening. She closed her eyes and extended her mind into the ground, feeling the magma currents twist and hum. Then, something strange interrupted the pattern. A flicker, a pulse that wasn't planetary. It came from the upper atmosphere, a metallic rhythm, erratic and falling. She frowned, her ears twitching. "What now?" she muttered as the pulse grew louder. It wasn't energy. It was distress. Then the sky split open. A brilliant streak of fire cut through the clouds, screaming down toward the horizon. It wasn't a meteor, too controlled, too stubborn about not disintegrating. The object tore across the landscape, trailing smoke and sparks, before disappearing in a thunderous impact several kilometers away. Elira felt the shockwave ripple through the ground, tickling her feet like static. "Fantastic," she sighed. "The sky's throwing tantrums again." Still, curiosity sparked beneath her exasperation. Something about that falling object felt alive. She could sense a faint biosignature flickering amid the wreckage. Against her better judgment, she began walking toward the crater. Each step left molten impressions in the basalt, and the air shimmered around her like a heat mirage come to life. When she reached the crash site, she found the remains of a small craft, sleek, metallic, and covered in scorch marks. The kind of thing that screamed foreign technology. As she approached, her heat sensors detected faint movement. A panel hissed open and a figure crawled out, coughing and muttering in a strange tongue. He was small, at least compared to her. Barely reached her waist. His body was wrapped in a dark flight suit, his skin pale from what looked like long exposure to artificial light. He blinked up at her, eyes wide, mouth half open. For a moment, neither moved. The alien stared, trying to process the blazing goddess towering over him. She stared, trying to determine whether the tiny creature was dangerous, edible, or both. Finally, he spoke, voice hoarse but steady. Hi." She tilted her head, curious. The translator embedded in her collar tried to interpret his words. It hummed, blinked, then chirped out. "Greetings, Supreme Heat Anomaly." The human froze. "Supreme what now?" Elira frowned and tapped the device. "Translator malfunction. Try again." The device recalibrated. "I am Elira," it said, now in his language. The man squinted up at her, shielding his face from the radiant warmth. Right, Elira. Cool name. Well, hot name, technically. I'm Captain Eli Mercer, United Terran Fleet. Or at least I was before my ship decided gravity looked like a good career move. He smiled, an exhausted, lopsided grin that didn't match the situation at all. Elira blinked. She wasn't used to people smiling at her. Usually, they screamed, fainted, or caught on fire. Yet here he was, smiling as if she wasn't radiating enough energy to roast a small animal. "Do you understand what's happening?" she asked cautiously. "Pretty sure I do," he said, brushing dust off his jacket. "I crash-landed on a lava planet and met a woman who looks like a supernova. Honestly, it's been a weird week." A sound escaped Elira's throat that might have been a laugh or a mild seismic tremor. "You are unafraid." "Afraid? Oh, I'm terrified," he said, grinning wider. "But fear's not gonna help me fix my ship, is it?" Her energy fluctuated, dimming slightly. The air cooled. For the first time in her memory, her aura didn't spike dangerously around another being. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, a calm, steady rhythm that reached her through the ground. She took a step closer. "Strange creature," she murmured. "Your presence alters my field. I do not understand." Eli looked up at her glowing outline, sweat forming on his brow. "Well, I tend to have that effect on women," he said lightly. Elira blinked, trying to determine whether that was a threat or an attempt at humor. "You jest," she concluded at last. "Always," he said, "keeps the fear from getting too loud." For the first time in centuries, Elira felt something within her shift, a quiet, almost fragile warmth that wasn't heat at all. The universe had just dropped something impossible into her world, a man who didn't burn when he looked at her. Elira had never invited anyone into her sanctum before, mostly because inviting someone near her home was equivalent to issuing a death sentence via spontaneous combustion. But somehow, this strange, talkative human named Eli Mercer was still breathing, sweating profusely, yes, but alive. That alone was enough to earn him a guided tour. Her dwelling was carved into the obsidian cliffs overlooking a slow-moving lava river. It wasn't so much a house as a cathedral of heat. Vaulted corridors of fused glass, shimmering walls alive with red veins of energy. When Eli stepped inside, the temperature sensors on his flight suit screamed in protest. "You, don't keep it a little asterisk cooler asterisk in here?" he asked through gritted teeth. Elira turned, her molten hair glinting in the light. "This is the optimal climate for my biology. Any cooler and I risk instability." "Instability," Eli repeated, loosening his collar. "Right, can't have that. I'll just, hydrate aggressively." He took a cautious sip from his canteen, which immediately hissed as the water evaporated. "Okay, good talk." She gestured for him to sit on a rock bench. He did, only to leap up again as the stone glowed red under his touch. Elira frowned and quickly waved a hand. The bench's molecules shifted, cooling to a tolerable temperature. "Better?" Eli stared at the seat like it might bite him. "Define better." She tilted her head. "You have an odd manner of communication. Sarcasm, I believe." "Yeah, that's kind of my default setting." He grinned. "It's either that or panic screaming, and I like to save the latter for special occasions." Elira studied him, this small, fragile creature who kept cracking jokes while surrounded by enough energy to vaporize him. It made no sense. She could feel his heartbeat through the ambient field, steady and brave, even though his body temperature was dangerously high. "You are either extraordinarily brave," she said slowly, "or profoundly reckless." "Why not both?" he said with a shrug. For reasons she couldn't quite name, she almost smiled. Almost. As Eli inspected his wrecked comm unit on her work table, Elira watched from the other side of the room, pretending to study her energy readings. The truth was she was fascinated. His ship, what remained of it, was unlike any Rayloni technology. Lightweight alloys, multi-phase energy conduits, a strange crystalline core that pulsed faintly when he touched it. He was clearly an engineer of some kind, or at least someone with more confidence than equipment. "So," she said at last, "you came from beyond the Raylan system." He looked up from his work. "Yep, Terra, third rock from a boring sun. Lots of water, slightly less lava." She frowned slightly. "And you travel the stars freely." "Well, we like to pretend it's freedom," he said, tightening a wire with his teeth. "But mostly it's paperwork and low pay. Still beats being planet-bound, though." His answer lingered in her mind. To leave one's planet by choice, she couldn't imagine it. Her people hadn't left Raylan in generations. Their biology was too unstable, their energy fields too tied to this world's core. She had never seen the stars from anywhere but this atmosphere's haze. And now, here was a man who'd fallen from them like some careless spark, laughing at the impossible. "Your physiology is resilient," she said, scanning him with a gentle pulse of energy. "You should not be surviving exposure to this heat." "Maybe it's the humidity," Eli said dryly. "Or maybe your planet just likes me." "My planet does not asterisk like anyone," Elira replied. "It devours those who displease it." He looked up at the glowing ceiling, then back at her. "Well, I'll try not to step on any cosmic toes." She blinked. "Your idioms are alarming." As the hours passed, Elira found herself adjusting her own energy field to make him more comfortable. She dimmed her aura, cooled the air slightly, even dampened the electromagnetic pulses that would normally fry delicate human nerves. It was like trying to whisper when you'd only ever shouted. And yet, every time she looked at him, his hands busy repairing the impossible with scrap and optimism, her control improved. When night fell, or what passed for night on a world that glowed from within, Eli stepped outside onto the obsidian terrace. Above them, the sky swirled with violet storms and arcs of plasma, painting the horizon in liquid fire. "You know," he said softly, "it's beautiful here, terrifying but beautiful." Elira joined him, standing a few feet away so as not to ignite his hair. "You find beauty in chaos." "Sure. Chaos has character," he said, smiling faintly. "It's honest about what it is. Same goes for you." Her ears twitched at that. "I am not chaos." "No," he said gently, "you're the eye of it." For a long moment, neither spoke. The world hummed around them, the living heartbeat of a planet that seemed to lean closer, listening. Elira's internal temperature fluctuated strangely, not from instability but from something subtler, something that made her energy feel lighter. She tried to focus on scientific observation. "When you are near," she said, "my biofield stabilizes. My core temperature drops by several degrees." Eli grinned. "So I'm like your emotional air conditioner." She blinked, puzzled. What?" "Never mind," he said quickly, laughing. "Let's just say I'm cooling things down." Her expression softened. No one has ever done that before. He turned to look at her properly then. The glow in her skin, the strange beauty of her alien form, the faint silver flicker in her long ears as they caught the stormlight. Then maybe no one else ever tried. She didn't know what to say to that. Words felt clumsy, like tools unsuited for the delicate machinery of what was forming between them. Instead, she let the silence stretch, broken only by the distant hiss of lava vents. Suddenly, a soft asterisk ping from Eli's device broke the moment. He frowned. "That can't be right." "What is it?" "Distress beacon," he said, checking the screen. "Your atmosphere's bouncing my signal back. The fleet's gonna pick it up." Her pulse spiked. "Others will come." "Yeah, probably with too many questions and not enough patience." Her face darkened like a gathering storm. "Your people will not understand. The Reloni guard their territory. Contact could be disastrous." Eli rubbed the back of his neck. "Then we'll figure it out. I've gotten out of worse situations." "Well, maybe not asterisk hotter asterisk ones." Elira almost groaned. "You just even in crisis." "Hey, humor's just panic wearing sunglasses." He turned the beacon off, but the damage was done. The signal had already escaped into the cosmos. Above them, lightning flared violet across the horizon. Elira's instinct screamed of change, of destiny rushing toward her faster than she was ready to face. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of what her power might do. She was afraid of losing the one being who didn't flinch when she breathed. Eli noticed the worry flicker in her eyes. "Hey," he said softly, "whatever happens next, you've got this, Elira. You're literally made of fire." She tilted her head. "And you?" He grinned. "I'm just hoping to avoid becoming barbecue." Elira let out a low hum that might have been laughter. The world around them glowed brighter, almost playfully, as if the planet itself shared the joke. And high above, far beyond the crimson clouds, distant signals stirred, human and Reloni alike, both racing toward the same point of impossible convergence, drawn by the heat of something entirely new. The council chamber of Raylan Prime was not built for comfort. It was built to impress, intimidate, and occasionally melt anyone who disagreed too loudly. Columns of living magma pulsed through the walls, their rhythmic glow synchronized to the planet's core heartbeat. Above the vast circular table floated crystalline spheres filled with ionized gas, recording every movement, every word, every twitch of an ear. And into this grand inferno walked Elira, the Fireborn, followed closely by a very nervous human who was trying very hard not to combust. Eli Mercer had been on his fair share of diplomatic missions, but none of them required heat shielding and a pre-meeting pep talk about not scratching molten furniture. Elira moved with the grace of a storm contained by sheer will. The council members, 7 ancient beings wreathed in shifting halos of plasma, watched her as one might watch a volatile weapon that had just learned to smile. "Daughter of Flame," intoned High Counselor Voreth, his voice like crackling stone. "You have been called before us to answer for your unprecedented conduct." Elira inclined her head slightly. "You refer to the human." The council murmured in low, oscillating tones. Eli wasn't sure if they were talking or about to summon a volcano demon. He whispered, "They don't sound thrilled." "They never do," she muttered back. Voreth's halo flared crimson. "The energy readings across the southern hemisphere have shifted dramatically since this alien's arrival. Storm frequency has decreased, core output has stabilized, and yet you risk contamination." Eli raised a hand cautiously. "Contamination seems a bit harsh. I shower." 7 glowing. The nights on Raylan Prime were not gentle. They were spectacular. Plasma storms danced across the sky like furious ribbons of violet and gold, and the twin moons cast a silvery glow that shimmered against the molten rivers below. From her elevated terrace, Elira watched the chaos of light and fire with a careful precision, her energy field undulating in soft pulses. Eli was beside her, knees pulled to his chest, marveling at the planet with a mixture of awe and mild terror. "I swear," he said, "if I survive this, I'm never complaining about traffic again." Elira tilted her head, her long ears catching the flickering stormlight. "You find this amusing?" "Absolutely. I mean, look at it. Your world is basically a mood ring on steroids. And you're glowing in rhythm with it. It's like a cosmic disco." She blinked. "A disco? I am stabilizing planetary currents, not entertaining you with dance lights." "Exactly," he said, smiling, multitasking at its finest. The human's levity was strangely comforting. Every pulse of his calm heartbeat resonated with her own field, turning what had once been an uncontrollable blaze into something measured, almost musical. She found herself adjusting her energy, letting him near without the usual precautions. It was subtle, like the difference between holding a live wire carefully or just letting it hum in your hand. "You're changing," he said after a while, his voice quiet. "You're calmer. I mean, not just calmer, you're glowing differently." "Yes," she admitted. "I do not know why. Your presence affects me physically." He grinned. "Guess I'm a therapeutic human, only slightly flammable and entirely capable of ruining bad moods." "You are audacious," she said. "And you're ridiculously patient," he shot back. "I mean, think about it. I'm a tiny, fragile creature crawling into your world, surrounded by lava and storms, and you're letting me poke around like I belong here. Most species would have roasted me by now." Elira's eyes softened. "I have never encountered another being who did not flinch at my energy. Most run, scream, or combust." "Hey," Eli said with mock offense, "I had a crash landing, not a dramatic death wish. You should feel honored." "Do not tempt fate," she replied, though a faint upward curve of her lips betrayed the faintest amusement. For days, Eli worked on repairing the wreckage of his ship, scavenging parts from melted debris, and using some Reloni technology he had barely managed to decipher. Elira observed, fascinated. His hands moved with confidence, deftly combining alien alloys with Terran circuitry. Occasionally, he cursed under his breath when a piece didn't fit, and she would hum softly in amusement, feeling the vibrations of her energy sync with the rhythm of his movements. "You know," he said one evening, holding up a delicate crystalline core, "if someone told me a week ago I'd be tinkering with alien technology while chatting with a glowing giantess, I'd have laughed myself into the vacuum of space. Yet here I am. I am uncertain whether to be insulted or intrigued," Elira replied. "Definitely intrigued," he said, smiling. "Though maybe a little terrified too, but hey, that's a package deal." As the nights passed, the strange equilibrium between them began to shape the world itself. The frequent plasma storms softened, rivers of lava slowed their unpredictable surges, and distant volcanic vents released gentler plumes of gas. Even the flora and fauna seemed to respond. Small creatures that had once skittered frantically from her heat now approached with cautious curiosity, drawn by the calm aura emanating from both Elira and the human. "You notice that?" Eli asked one night, pointing to a cluster of bioluminescent creatures emerging from the rocks. "They're not running away. They're glowing along with us." Elira nodded. "They react to my energy. Yet it is your presence that stabilizes the pulse. And you're saying this is new?" Eli asked, frowning as if the complexity of the situation required a diagram. "Very new, perhaps unprecedented." Their bond, though silent at times, had begun to ripple through the environment in subtle, extraordinary ways. Energy fields, once jagged and unpredictable, now hummed harmoniously, forming patterns that even Elira had not anticipated. Eli noticed these fluctuations, and though he did not understand them fully, he marveled at the way her aura seemed to dance in response to his heartbeat, like two separate instruments learning to play a duet. "Look at that," he said, pointing toward a patch of crystallized lava. "It's actually beautiful, like your energy is painting the rocks." Elira's gaze followed, and she felt a warmth that had nothing to do with her biofield. "I have never considered beauty in this way," she admitted. Eli nudged a small rock toward her, carefully, as if testing the boundaries of their interaction. "Sometimes beauty shows up where you least expect it, even on a superheated nightmare planet." She almost laughed, almost. "You call Raylan a nightmare?" "Depends on the day," he said lightly. "Today, it's more like a really intense art installation." Elira observed him, fascinated by his capacity to see lightness in a world that had only ever seemed harsh and consuming. The subtle humor in his words, the resilience in his demeanor, it all resonated within her, shaping the fire within her chest into something calmer, more deliberate. And yet, beneath the laughter and the delicate balance, both knew that this fragile peace was temporary. Signals from the outer fleet, still faint but persistent, had begun to appear on Eli's instruments. Their presence would soon be detected, and with detection would come scrutiny. For all the harmony they had cultivated, outside forces would not understand it. They would see only potential catastrophe. Eli glanced at her, noting the slight tension in her posture, the faint flicker of her auric energy. "Whatever comes next," he said quietly, "we handle it together, and maybe try not to set anything on fire." "Well, not asterisk too much." Elira's ears twitched. "You remain remarkably calm in the face of probable death. Why panic when you can joke?" he said, flashing that crooked grin that had begun to calm her more than any meditation ever had. Her aura shimmered in response, steady and warm. The world itself seemed to respond to their union, the molten rivers below glowing softer, the storms above easing into distant rumbles. For the first time, Elira realized that she did not have to face the universe's heat alone, and that perhaps, just perhaps, two beings so different could exist in harmony, even on a planet designed to consume everything it touched. And high above, where plasma storms danced across the horizon, the two of them stood side by side, watching a world slowly learning to breathe along with them. The warning came not as a roar, but as a subtle tremor beneath their feet, a pulse in the ground that made even Elira pause. She had grown accustomed to the rhythms of Raylan Prime, the gentle undulations of its molten rivers and the whisper of its venting gases. But this was different. Something foreign was moving through her world, and it carried intent. Eli noticed it first. He had been tightening a conduit on a partially repaired ship panel, muttering complaints about alien wiring standards, when the vibrations made his tools rattle. That's new," he said, looking up at her. "Yes," Elira said, her tone sharp. Her ears twitched, picking up the subtle frequencies that humans could not hear. "They are coming." The council, predictably, had already mobilized. Drones and enforcement units surged from hidden vents, skimming the air with glowing ion blades and scanning beams that made Eli duck instinctively. "They really don't like me," he muttered. "No," Elira replied calmly. "They do not like what you represent. You are change, and they fear change." The drones descended in precise formations, their ion fields crackling in the turbulent air. They were not designed for negotiation, only containment and neutralization. Elira extended her hands, and a wave of heat radiated outward, forming a shimmering barrier. The drones skidded to a halt, their energy weapons sputtering harmlessly against her field. "See," she said to Eli, a faint trace of amusement in her voice. "Even they hesitate before approaching." Eli wiped sweat from his brow. "I feel safer already, not." "You will adapt," she said, her aura flaring slightly as she tuned the barrier to include him, protecting him from the searing energy that would otherwise singe his flesh. "Or you will perish trying." As the first wave of drones retreated under her intense gaze, the second arrived, larger, faster, and more aggressive. This time, Eli had no choice but to assist. He darted between glowing machinery, using spanners and makeshift tools to short-circuit the drone's guidance systems. Sparks flew, and for a moment he looked like some kind of chaotic conductor orchestrating a symphony of destruction. "You're insane," Elira called, laughing despite herself as a drone tipped sideways and collided with molten rock. "No," he shouted back, dodging another automated attack. "I'm improvising. Big difference." The sky above them darkened as the upper atmosphere began to resonate with Elira's rising energy. She extended her senses outward, pulling heat currents into a focused shield, guiding the drones away from the fragile components of her terrace and the semi-functional human technology. Each pulse of her field sent a ripple through the air, bending light and energy alike, while Eli's quick fingers and frantic ingenuity ensured that none of the ship's equipment melted entirely. Finally, a lull descended. Both parties paused, the drones regrouping at a distance while Elira and Eli stood side by side, breathing in unison. Her field shimmered softly, pulsing to his heartbeat. "They underestimated you," she said, voice low. Eli grinned, despite soot on his face and minor burns. "Guess we're a good team. Who knew humanity and fire gods could coordinate this well?" "Not gods," she corrected, "merely custodians of a volatile world. But yes, we are compatible." Compatibility, as she had learned in the quiet before the fight, did not mean safety. It meant resonance. It meant a rhythm that the planet, the human, and her own volatile core could follow together. And now, with the drones regrouping, that rhythm would be tested. A high-pitched whine signaled the arrival of the third wave. Larger drones, carrying containment grids and energy disruptors, streaked through the atmosphere at impossible speeds. Eli ducked behind a crystallized spire. "Okay," he muttered. "This is officially too many flying death machines for one human. You know, I usually deal with paperwork." Elira's hands moved fluidly, tracing arcs in the air. Energy flared, bending around them in a protective cocoon. Each pulse pushed back the drones, but they adapted quickly, altering trajectory and firing concentrated beams of energy. Eli, improvising again, rigged a series of explosive conduits from melted ship parts and spare circuitry, launching them in arcs that detonated in bursts of harmless, dazzling light against the drones' outer shells. "You're reckless," she said, eyes narrowing though the corner of her mouth quirked upward. "And you're really flashy," he countered, ducking a laser bolt that vaporized a nearby rock. Teamwork, right? Their synchronized efforts began to turn the tide. The drones, sophisticated as they were, could not anticipate a combination of alien bioenergy and human unpredictability. Each time they attacked, the duo responded, her with precision and overwhelming force, him with improvisation and chaotic ingenuity. Slowly, the containment effort faltered, and the attackers began to retreat, their coordination breaking under the unusual resistance. For a moment, the battlefield stilled. Lava vents exhaled softer plumes, the plasma storms above dimmed in fascination, and the two figures standing amid the glowing rocks allowed themselves to breathe. Eli looked around, picking soot from his hair. "So, dinner," he said lightly, though his hands shook from adrenaline. "You jest," Elira said, though she did not stop the faint hum of amusement that vibrated through her chest. "Nope," he replied, grinning. "You brought me back from near death. I think I earned at least a snack, preferably one that doesn't explode." Elira's ears twitched. "You continue to underestimate the volatility of this environment and of me." "Maybe," he said, "but I also continue to underestimate neither. We survived. That counts for something." Her aura dimmed slightly, a rare sign of exhaustion, but she did not falter. Instead, she looked at him and allowed a rare thought. Perhaps this human is not only unafraid but indispensable. The realization sent a ripple through her energy field, a warmth that was neither heat nor fire, but something unmeasurable, something profoundly human. Above them, distant fleet signals still pulsed faintly, carried across the void toward the planet. Reinforcements were on their way, but for now, Elira and Eli had survived. Together they stood amid the glowing rocks and cooling flames, two unlikely allies whose connection had not only held, but had begun to transform the very world around them. Eli glanced at her, wiping sweat from his brow. "Next time," he said, "maybe we negotiate first." Elira tilted her head, letting her energy hum softly. "Next time, I will try not to incinerate you entirely." He chuckled, "Deal, but don't hold back too much. I kind of like this fiery chaos." And somewhere deep beneath the crust, the planet pulsed in quiet approval, as if acknowledging that even the most untouchable could find a partner strong enough and brave enough to stand beside them. The days that followed were a careful balance between repair, observation, and adaptation. Eli worked tirelessly to restore his ship, though the once pristine metallic panels now bore the marks of molten encounters and plasma sparks. Elira, meanwhile, had begun to realize just how profoundly his presence had changed her, not merely stabilizing her energy, but teaching her something that centuries of solitude had never allowed: trust. She no longer flared instinctively at the approach of others, no longer felt the pulse of the planet as a warning of impending destruction. With Eli nearby, her energy resonated gently, like a warm hum that eased tension rather than inciting fear. She found herself laughing more often, teasing the human, and even engaging in small mischief, like nudging molten rocks to form odd shapes or guiding plasma currents to sketch humorous patterns in the sky. Eli laughed each time, oblivious to the danger, and each time she felt a warmth that had nothing to do with her bioenergy. The council observed these changes with growing astonishment. Drones were recalled, some damaged irreparably, and the High Council deliberated in whispered tones. She has found equilibrium, Vorth admitted reluctantly. With him, her energy is neither destructive nor unpredictable. The planet itself benefits. They call this asterisk love asterisk, apparently. Eli muttered one